Brian Cat to do.
One day you will understand when you say you're ready. That
Yep.
means we're going.
I like that you believe that.
Oh well, why did that just shrink?
That's what she.
Kicking the show off in grand style, folks. Today's show is brought to you by Cloudberry Lab. Check them out, cloudberrylab.com/FRD for a free trial offer that will be going away here in a little bit, and learn how to back up your data just a little bit better. And
Yep.
Hurrah-pum-pum. Paul, you know what I'm going to do after this show?
I think it's going to involve golfing.
Oh, you're not wrong. Provided it's not fully underwater, because if you can see this picture behind me, folks, this is Paul Brown Stadium. This is where the Bengals lose approximately 75 to 80% of their games per season. Mm-hmm. But what you can see here is all this water actually going right up into the stadium. It's,
wow. It's like you guys have boat side parking now.
Well, that would at least make the games a little bit more interesting.
What's that thing it's next to, a river? What is that, the Ohio River? Or what's
Yeah, so this is the Ohio River, supposed to stop somewhere about down here, give or take. There's actually a park I'm trying to keep right that you can go play in. We've taken the kid there because the Red Stadium is like here.
Yep.
And it's a great little park. It's a great place, and it is only accessible with scuba gear right now. And there's a possibility that my golf driving range might be in a very similar condition, because it was almost all the way underwater when I went last week, 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And that's just So if I'm bitter the rest of the week, it's because I drove all the way down there and got nothing.
So I assume this flooding is due to the proximity of the river. Is that what's happening? Because we had a lot of rain too, but we don't have flooding here.
Yeah. So well, obviously it's a giant river. It feeds into the Mississippi.
Rivers.
It's typically about 40 feet deep, give or take. Mm-hmm. But Cincinnati and kind of the region we live in a valley. And so like there's just massive hills just rolling down, and all that water just flows right in there. And when you have 6-7 inches of rain over a week, it makes that level go up a lot.
Have you seen the movie The Patriot? I'm referring to the Mel Gibson movie, The Patriot, not the Steven Seagal movie, The Patriot.
Is that one that came out, God, maybe like a decade ago?
Yeah, probably. It's like a Revolutionary War movie.
That's one of the few movies I have seen.
All right. So the main villain in the movie is a British general or whatever who, was obviously fighting the Americans. And at one point he explains to one of his underlings his motivation, which is that the King George or whatever has ceded him this area of land that is between whatever rivers. Mm-hmm. And he says, and I'm going to call it Ohio. It's kind of a cute little moment.
Well, that's we're just gonna wait for one note to sync. There we go. The magic of the cloud, everybody. The magic of the cloud. Moving on here, Paul. You noted, and actually, this is somewhat substantial, but not unprecedented. But smartphones.
Yep, smartphones. Yeah,
smartphones. Sales have fallen for the first time ever.
Yeah, and actually, so I do the same thing with smartphones that I do with PCs, which is I look at data from both IDC and Gartner and I average them. I don't remember which this is true, but I think that I could be wrong, but I think that one of those companies actually sees smartphone sales falling year over year for the first time. Mm-hmm. But they both agree that smartphone sales fell in the last quarter for the first time year over year. And that's notable for a number of reasons. But, the big one is probably that it was a holiday quarter. That's usually a big quarter for smartphone sales, especially with Apple releasing their new phones every year at that time. So kind of a big milestone. We've been heading toward it. Smartphone sales year over year have been slowing, I should say. And even if you look at an average of the data from the two companies, you're looking at something like 1.4% growth year over year. Flat. I mean, that's flat. It's so this year could be completely flat or it could be down. So we'll see what happens there. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. But I think the interesting thing to me, and this is something I always highlight with this kind of information, is the speed at which it happened. Right. So if you look at the peak of PC sales, which happened in 2011, That was exactly 30 years after the release of the first IBM PC. When you look at the peak of the smartphone market, it happened exactly 10 years after the release of the iPhone, which I think is the start of the modern smartphone market. It's, it took 1/3 of the amount of time. And then, of course, the corollary, which is a strangely difficult to pronounce word to that, is that smartphone market is also over 5 times the size of the PC market at its peak, and will someday be even bigger than that. I mean, it's astonishing how many people have smartphones, but that's the thing with these digital markets. They always happen much faster than the thing that came before it, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable that's eventually going to happen. There's a saturation point. You can only sell so many phones per year.
Yep.
And
emerging markets mature, and then even places they used to rely on in the past, like China or India, have matured. They're not. They're in replacement phones for the most part. Okay, cat. Seriously, the cat literally. I can't explain this. This is a USB key. She had it in one of her hands. She literally picked it up with her little hand. She doesn't have a thumb like we do. I don't know how she did that. Maybe it was just stuck to her, but she literally just picked this up. Okay.
Well, cat congratulations. I was going to say congratulations. I don't know.
Now she has picked up my Bose noise canceling headphones.
Premium feature coming to Thurrott. It's going to be called the Cat Cam. Tune in daily as the cat slowly destroys Paul Thurrott's office.
This is like 3 months of lashing out that's happening at an accelerated pace because, like I've explained before, they were locked upstairs. Well, not literally, but they ensconced themselves upstairs because of the dog, and now they're just like, you know what, screw this.
Yep.
And it's a healthy reminder of how annoying these animals are. I felt bad for them before, but now I feel bad for me.
Well, I can't say I feel bad for you, Paul, but I did uncover something, and I don't think this is new, but it's new to me, and it's actually amazing. Paul, are you familiar with the informed delivery by the United States Postal Service?
No. This might have just come up recently. Did you mention this to me before, or?
Maybe a long time ago, but it's now available at my area. And what this is, we actually had some issues with the mail in our neighborhood just because there's a North and South Street. I know I've said it a million times or whatever, and mail gets dumped wherever in wrong places. What this does is now every morning I get an email that shows a photograph of the mail that is coming to me.
Somebody just told me. I think Andrew told me about this. That's what it is. Yeah.
That way I know not to go to the mailbox.
See, if they were to do that in my area, it would be in a leather sack on the back of a horse. I don't think this feature is coming to Emmaus anytime soon, is what I'm trying to say.
Be. You never know. But it's neat. I get an email every morning, and now I know what is coming. This would have been helpful probably like 3 to 6 weeks ago when I was waiting for tax documents, which file your taxes if you're in the United States, because of all that good stuff. But yeah, it's called Informed Delivery Daily Digest. Check it out if you're in the U.S. It's free. You just kind of sign up for it, and then you have to prove your address, which it's always interesting how they get these questions, but yeah. So there you go.
They should handle it like spam mail and email. You should be able to check the ones you don't want to have delivered and then permanently ban certain senders.
That is a future that will never arrive, but I would welcome it with open arms.
Yeah, I agree. It's never going to happen.
Speaking of things that are never going to happen, just kidding. What is Flutter?
So apparently Google announced this last year at Google I/O, and I either missed it or have zoned on it since. But Flutter is a cross-platform API for developing mobile apps. In other words, you create rich mobile apps that work across Android and iOS using something called Dart. Because we need yet another language for this stuff. But I kind of reacted to it this morning on Twitter as if it were brand new. Like I said, they actually announced it last year, and now it's in beta. But, this is basically what I would call Google's version of Xamarin, right? And it looks pretty solid. I've been watching, right before we started the show, I was watching some videos. It works with whatever code editor or environment you choose to work with. And a lot of the demo stuff they've done has been in Visual Studio Code. which is really interesting to me because when you think about different developer environments and the way that developers work, there's like basically two big ways to do it. You can use a big, heavy IDE, which has been the traditional way of developing applications on whatever platform, Android Studio, Visual Studio, Xcode. But then there are these lightweight developer editors like Visual Studio Code or Atom or whatever. And you kind of work with folders, either at a command line or literally graphically in like a file explorer type thing. And you create projects, and Visual Studio Code works with those projects. And these are actual mobile apps, and it's kind of interesting that this kind of is bridging the gap in some ways between the way that, say, like mobile developers have historically worked and the way that more traditional developers have worked. So anyway, it looks interesting.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how this plays out and if people actually adopt it. Obviously, Google is trying to make a play at the developers, which Microsoft claims that they have, although their developer conference still isn't sold out.
I've heard there are reasons for that, by the way, and they're not negative. No, hold on. And they're not.
You set that up too easy.
They're not negative. So I don't want to say anything about that right now because I'm not sure I'm supposed to talk about that. But apparently, this isn't the big negative thing that people are worried about.
Gotcha. You were teeing that one up for me too perfectly, but
I know.
Move on.
I could sense the I could sense the retort.
I was going to pounce like a cat on your desk, Paul, throughout.
Yep.
Speaking of other things that are going on, Microsoft unveiled a Sea of Thieves bundle. Paul, have you played this game? I got to tell you, I'm a little interested by it for multiple reasons.
Yep. It does look pretty good. No, I've not. In fact, I don't think I think I got a code for it. Not even sure I installed it. Do you? I'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, maybe if you have that code. Otherwise, I was going to sign up for Game Pass. That was the other reason I was actually interested. That was going to be the game that actually got me to start paying that $10 a month. Right.
Let me look that. Well, I'll look that up for you.
Okay. So that game is obviously coming soon. I'm not reviewing it clearly as we're talking about it now, but it's for Microsoft's sake. As much as they're hyping this one up, I hope it lasts longer than Sunset Overdrive, which was the last massive game I remember them hyping up, and this one looks a little more interesting. Looks a little more playtime, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
What
was that?
What did you do?
Oh no. I sent you a code and it showed the code on the screen. We're going to have to edit that out, or you're going to have to use it before then. Why did it do that?
Ladies and gentlemen, do you ever wonder why I drink? Or do you ever wonder why I sulk in the corner?
Well, hold on a second. I understand the natural reaction to blame, but why on earth would it have showed it over the video like that?
It's Skype.
It's not like I held up a piece of paper with a code on it. That's not me. That's Skype. Right, Cat? Even the cat knows that.
This is where like some soft jazz music is playing in the background, and I just let it all out, man. God. Well, I know what I will be doing after this. If you want to try to redeem that code as well, feel free to screen cap it, but I'm going to try to get it first, and if I fail, be my guest. You can have it as well.
I've been using Skype for many years. I've recorded approximately 1,000 podcasts. I have never seen that happen before in my life.
Skype, the gift that keeps on giving. Something else that's happening this week, and this one is actually much more serious. Supreme Court is expected to give a ruling on Microsoft's data overseas. If you're not familiar with that, super high level, they have data stored overseas. Should they have to give up that data to the U.S. government? Obviously, the other ramification is if they have data stored in the U.S., should they have to give it up to, say, France's government if they request it? So this is a ruling is expected this week from the Supreme Court on how this is going to play out, and this will have major ramifications either way for all of the cloud providers in the U.S.
Yeah, and this is not a simple black and white issue, unfortunately.
Nope, not at all.
I realize everything has to be polarizing these days, and this will be polarizing, but you can make a really good case on either side of this one. So it's tough. In some ways, it's a little bit like the iPhone thing with the gunman in California. Should Apple be forced to unlock the phone? And you can make great arguments for yes in a case like that. It's a known terrorist. And you can make a great case for no, because it sets a precedent and blah, blah, blah. The very existence of a backdoor means that other phones can be broken to, et cetera. So Be very interesting to see, or I'm very interested to see what they rule on this one.
Yep. And I can almost guarantee that if it rules against Microsoft's favor, they are going to have contingency plans on how to work around this. I actually know that because they've privately, some people there have told me that they have some crazy ideas about how they could get around this, but it's not clean cut or easy. Involves subsidiaries and other companies. But this is going to be messy no matter how it plays out.
I have a feeling that regardless of how it plays out, Microsoft will still need to implement some technical changes where a user could either dictate where their data is stored within the bounds of whatever laws, or Microsoft would enforce it based on, again, whatever laws. There are regulations in the EU in particular. Germany is a great example where it's illegal for Microsoft to store the data of a company outside of Germany. That thing has to be in Germany, so they have data centers in Germany. Now, should a United States citizen be allowed to specify that they want their data stored in Germany? And the answer probably is no. But you can also make this kind of case like, here's a map of the world. Where do you want your data stored? I mean, you probably want it in two different places in case of any kind of a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. You might want, Germany and Brazil or something, or whatever the choices are. Keep them as far away from each other as possible. It's a really messy issue.
Yeah. So this will be all eyes will be on this, and there's going to be a lot of retort once it actually hits the airwaves.
Yeah.
So, Paul, you got anything else for today?
No. Everything I own is now covered in cat hair because it's flying off this animal's body like she's generating it on the fly. I don't know how she's doing it. She has figured out how to pick things up with her hand, which I find to be kind of scary. She's literally, cats kind of do this thing with their hand, and she does this with her hand, and she puts her hand on something, and then it picks up. So she must be hooking her claws into it. It's like she just had this breakthrough. Next, she's going to start building tools. No, I don't know. I mean, I've got a podcast today, and I've got she just dumped something on the floor. All right. I don't know what I'm doing today. I'm distracted. I apologize.
Well, there was a funky audio issue actually on yesterday's show, and I have a vague suspicion I know what it was. So I use a combination of XSplit and OBS. One day I'll have to detail out this entire studio because it's somewhat impressive. If I do say so myself.
If I do so, yeah, exactly.
But what I think what the issue was is, so I have another microphone like this that I use for the Sam's Report on Fridays and for Skype calls and all that stuff, and it wasn't muted yesterday, and I can actually see on OBS that it's the volume mixer. Obviously, it's not picking that up, and it was yesterday. I was like, man, that's kind of nice. I can see the volume mixer from here. And then people are like, hey, there's a small echo, and yep.
This podcast is like a box of chocolates. That's all.
Yeah. Some days you get audio issues. Some days you get cats.
Yep. You never know what you're going to get. You just know it's not going to be great.
I think our new motto is suboptimal. It's okay.
Yeah. Suboptimal by design.
Story of my life. Well, that wraps it up for today's show, folks. Today's show is brought to you, obviously, by Cloudberry Lab. Check them out, cloudberrylab.com/FRD, and grab that trial offer and learn how to back up your data. Azure, Amazon, Google Cloud, everybody else in between. And that does it for today, and have yourselves a wonderful, I was going to say weekend, but sadly, have yourselves a wonderful Tuesday.